Hey everybody, happy Friday and welcome to the Big Agent Meeting. My name is Frank Panunto and I'll be your host today. Clearly, I am not Russ Lagan. So Russ and his vest are feeling a little bit under the weather, but we all know that Russ is irreplaceable, irresistible. So it's an honor to sit in his seat today and just to pinch hit for him. But Russ will be back next week after we had a phenomenal and incredible week at EXPCon. So for everybody that was there, what an incredible event. When you're talking about just the kickoff on Monday, that kickoff party was insane. All the meetings, all the breakouts, all the relationships that were formed. What a phenomenal week. We had a new feature this year called the Explorer Room, where we had over 1,000 people came in there. Over 5,000 people attended the event with 600 plus being guests on Explorer's Pass. So phenomenal week all the way to the ending party, which was off the hook. And if anybody that was there, I'm going to make sure I get one of those big chandeliers for my house. It wouldn't fit, but I still need to have that thing. So welcome today, guys. Thanks for spending time with me. We have two phenomenal guests. We have Troy Palmquist with us, and we have the great DeVante Blow. If you don't know DeVante, if you've never met him, you are in for a treat today. This guy's sensational. What a great story. So let's get the meeting started. As you guys know, my name is Frank, as I said before, and I am one of the senior regional directors on the east side of the United States. I am Russ's counterpart, but our growth team has grown. We have big states throughout the country, obviously, and you guys have all met Felix Bravo, and Felix is taking care of our Florida region. Tony King, crushing it in Texas, but we also have this gigantic state out west of California. We have a new director of growth in California. So please help me welcome Troy Palmquist. Troy, what's happening, my man?
Not much. How are you guys?
We are doing great, and it's so great to have you part of the growth family. And you and I got to hang out together, obviously, at EXPCon. It was great getting to know you, and I want everybody else to get to know you. But it's funny, and in the time we spend together, you have such an incredible story. I mean, your background is incredible. This guy, everybody, is really accomplished. He's an author. His own brokerages and business owner, really intelligent person with a lot to offer. So, Troy, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background and your journey to EXP? I find it fascinating.
Well, I'm really excited to be at EXP. I think last week at EXPCon really opened up my eyes to the culture that this company has, which is unlike any other brokerage I've been at. My journey, I've been in the real estate industry going on 21 years this year. I've sold a decent amount of homes. At one point, I was licensed in 4 states, overseeing asset disposition for one of the largest buy and flip companies. But for me, and how I ended up at EXP is kind of a fun story. I write for Inman News, and I do speaking at their Inman Connect and stuff. And I got paired up with Michael Valdez to speak about agent attraction. And I almost backed out of the panel thinking that I'm like paired up for failure, not paired up for success. And we had an amazing conversation, amazing prep conversations, and, breakfast. And then one thing led to another. And I got to meet some of the growth team at the conference, and, really just opened up my eyes to what EXP was. And is, and really the value that it brings to agents and brokerages and such. So it was one of those unexpected journeys. God opens and closes doors for a reason. And when you don't listen, the door shuts and it hits your ass on the way out. And, it was one of those things that it was just like, hey, this is a really good opportunity. So that's how I ended up at EXP.
I've had two past because you had your own brokerage. I think that story is pretty cool because a lot of people here are focused on growth. So I think some people may even be afraid to approach a broker owner or an independent broker. So you were that just 3 weeks ago before you came here. So talk about what that transition was like.
So in 2017, I started my first brokerage called The Address. It was a small little indie brokerage. It started off with no agents, me in an area that I lived here, but didn't know a bunch of real estate agents in the Channel Islands, Harbor, and Oxnard. Great brand, great name. We ended up scaling it from 2017 to The end of 2021, we had 90 agents, 5 offices. I had done an acquisition of a brokerage in Malibu. I had an office in Newport Beach next to the Ferrari dealership, Malibu across from the Malibu Pier. And there was, really good growth there. We did a lot of transactions in 2020, 2021. And then that company got acquired by a Cochran franchise in Los Angeles. So it was, what are we going to do next after that? And I'd been a broker. I'd been the owner. I'd been, all of that stuff where you really feel the weight on your shoulders. And my overhead was through the roof. I mean, I had $100,000 a month in overhead between offices, employees, and all of that. And, so when we started the new brokerage after the acquisition, again, I found myself with 0 agents and started a new brand called Dora Properties in Ventura. And we launched it on another cloud-based brokerage because I didn't want to shoulder all of the responsibility as the broker of record and the liabilities of that. I didn't want the E&O policies. I didn't want the compliance pieces. And I knew that I could go somewhere else to have that as a service.
It's funny you say that, because that's the big misconception out there. It's the American dream, right? For real estate agents, they want to own their own brokers. They think it's going to be the easiest thing. They don't take into consideration all the overhead, all the costs, all the headaches, all the time management that's required to be successful. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, even if you're buying a franchise, you've still got those pieces. Yeah. So the best thing I think that I really found was going into one of these cloud-based virtual brokerages where you did have the opportunity to do that. And so we launched Dora Properties in January of 2022. And within a 5-month period, we'd kind of scaled up to about 40 agents, primarily all locally, where we didn't have a bigger presence last time with the previous brokerage. We had a handful of agents. So really focused on the growth locally, but by not having to have the burden of broker of record compliance, all of that, it really freed up the energy, because you only have so much energy, right? So it freed up the energy and the time to go and spend it with agents and try and focus on the attraction of new people to the brokerage.
Yeah, so it's pretty awesome. As we, I just wanted to introduce you to everybody, and for everybody out there in California, Troy is your new regional director, and what a better reference as you're talking to brokerages and you're talking to big teams. Troy lived it. So if you really need that third person call, you need support. Nobody can tell their story better than him, as he just came over to us. And real quickly in the last minute, Troy, talk a little bit about the book that you wrote and talk about how your transition has been so far over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I wrote a book in 2019 called Independent. We're actually going to do a version 2 of it now and kind of tie up the story. But it was a book that I wrote about why the independent model was so powerful, by having your own sense of identity and creating something that is of value and something that resonates with you. I think that the corporations where you've got somebody else's brand, it's hard to really always adopt that and truly speak that vision of what the brand is. And I think having your own brand is one of those ways to do it. And I don't care if it says brokered by behind it, like, it's my brand. And it's not always something that's sellable, but one of the things that I think a lot of indie brokers do think about when they are there is what's the exit strategy for them when they want to sunset their career into retirement. And I do think that, now looking at it, EXP does provide one of those good ways to sunset and retire, because you can still have the revenue component of it without having to shoulder all the liability. My onboarding experience in the last 2 weeks has been pretty smooth. I think there's a lot of ways to say that onboarding of a real estate brokerage or agents can be like Swiss cheese, where it's a really good piece of cheese, but there's holes. I'm really struggling to see where the holes are with the onboarding process here, and migrating over of a 30 agent team has been pretty seamless right now.
Pretty awesome. Well, thank you. You're a great addition to our growth team, and I'm looking forward to working with you more, my brother. And thanks for your time today and getting up early on the West Coast. Really appreciate it.
Go, as long as you got the coffee.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you, sir.
Wow, pretty awesome. So again, our growth team just continues to add talent at high levels. And again, you should be leveraging us every chance you get, because we're here to help you guys grow. So now to the star of the show. DeVante Blow is awesome. I've gotten to know him over the last 24 hours. We have a couple of conversations. What a dynamic person, a dynamic personality with a phenomenal story. So I welcome DeVante Blow to the show today. DeVante, how are you, my man?
What's up, brother? I appreciate it.
It is so, I'm so excited. It's so funny. A friend of mine in Delaware, who's another agent with the XP, Scott Deputy, he heard that you were going to be on the show today, and Scott sent me a text. He goes, "You're going to love DeVante." I said, "Already do. I spoke to him today. He's the best." So I'm really excited to spend some time with you today. And again, thank you, as you also got up early, to spend a few moments with us today to kind of tell us about your story. So look, for those who don't know DeVante, he's only been in the business for 3 years, but has reached an unbelievable level of success. And, you know, I think your story, DeVante, is extremely inspirational, especially when we have this kind of market going on now where people may not be doing as well they did in the past, and they're kind of lost and they're feeling like maybe I don't belong, or maybe I just can't do this anymore. But I feel like your story is so powerful. I can't wait to share with everybody. So why don't you give us a little bit of your background and kind of your journey, how you got into real estate?
Okay, yeah. So my background, I am a military brat. I was born in California, but
Thank you for that, by the way.
yeah, right. Raised in Washington State. There's an island called Whidbey Island, and a little city called Oak Harbor. So it's a military town, and I was raised there. Graduated in '08. I'm getting old, y'all. Graduated in '08, and then, let's see my story. I mean, it's kind of weird, to be honest with you. I was working at a restaurant for about 8 years, and then COVID happened, and COVID, of course, kind of punched everybody in the face, and it was actually one of the biggest. With respect to everybody, it was one of the biggest blessings that happened in my life. It shut down the restaurant, and it forced me to, make big decisions. And so in June of 2020, I made 3 crazy decisions that, I highly recommend people do, right? I mean, just go out there and chase fear. And so the first decision I made was to get married to my beautiful, beautiful, beautiful wife. The second decision we made was to move away from Whidbey Island, which, I mean, that was where I was raised. It was all I had known. And then 3 was to get into completely different careers. My wife was, we met when she was in the military. And then she got out of the military. She went into mental health. So she's a mental health therapist. And then I went from restaurant industry to real estate. And man, that's how I got here.
Isn't it wild how sometimes it's like you get forced into making decisions? When you look back at yourself, you're like, God, what was I so afraid of? I just needed to take this chance, right? But you did do it, and now you're here. So let's talk a little bit about mindset's a big thing for you. You and I spoke about this yesterday, and you have this term that you live by, this terminology that I found to be really awesome. So I would love for you, before we get into your actual business, let's talk a little bit about your mindset and that motto that you live by. I love it.
Yeah, man. So it's immediate, imperfect action, right? And so the mindset and the philosophy behind that is a lot of us have amazing ideas on a daily basis, right? Just amazing ideas. This is your amazing idea that you have. And this is like the execution or the results that you have, from doing that crazy, amazing idea. Well, a lot of people and a lot of ideas, they die right here in the middle, right? Because we overthink it. We let fear creep in, we just make it bigger than what it really should be. And so immediate and perfect action says, here's a crazy idea. Oh my gosh, just do it. Just get out there and do it. And so honestly, that's something that I adopted early in 2020. And man, the results have been crazy. It pushes you into fear, but it pushes you into amazing results as well. So
yeah, but it's such an incredible mindset. And not just for business, but for life, right? I mean, listen, you can't get a hit if you don't get in the batter's box. And so many times, I think we're so afraid of failure that it's all how you frame things, right? So I'm a baseball nut. I love sports. I always tell people, and I coach softball, that if you fail 7 out of 10 times in baseball, you're in the Hall of Fame. So you can't be afraid. You can't be afraid to fail, But if you never take that chance, then you're living with regrets. And I don't know that there's a harder emotion to live with, at least for me in my life, than regret, having never tried, So I love that mantra, man. That's awesome. So now let's fast forward a little bit. So you're 3 years into the business, and you have a primary focus on luxury. I understand that, but how you stumbled into that is a pretty cool story. And again, this comes, listen, I think this relates to exactly what you just said. You took a chance. So tell that story. That story is awesome.
Yeah. So, a lot of people, they ask me, how the heck did you get into luxury? How'd you get into luxury? And honestly, like I'm telling you guys, there's no magic bullet to this other than just being consistent and then taking risks. And so, just, going off of what I just told you about immediate imperfect action, there was a FSBO, a for sale by owner out here. And they had been on the market for about 3 weeks, and and he was hosting an open house. And so I saw it one day, and I looked over to my wife. I was like, babe, you should get ready. I want to go check this house out. And, I just went there not with intention to say, oh, this is going to be my listing. But you know what? I wanted to solve a problem for this guy. So we went over. The house was absolutely beautiful. And I already knew what the pain points were just looking at, the listing online. And so I went through the house. It was beautiful. And I talked to the guy. I was like, hey, so, what do you do? Got to build rapport. I let him know that I was a real estate agent. So I wasn't being like backhanded about anything. And he was like, hey, I'm a nurse, to be honest with you. So I work 12-hour shifts. He's like, honestly, like right after I shut this down, I have to go into work for a 12. And I was like, oof, that must be exhausting. He's like, actually, yeah, it really is. I was like, would it add value to you? This is after, of course, building rapport. Would it add value to you if I were to host an open house for you? That's all I said. I didn't say, hey, would it add value to you if I were to take this off your hands and put it on the market? Hey, can I just host an open house for you? And man, you could just see in his eyes, he's like, nobody's asked me that. I really appreciate it. You could see that like it was a relief. And so his kind of a backstory for him, his family had already moved to Texas, and the last bit of business they had was to sell this house. And so I was like, you know what? Hey, I can host this open house for you, blah, blah, blah. He was like, thank you so much. Yeah, that's great. And I asked him, I was like, so what, why do you think this hasn't sold? It's like, to be honest with you, I just don't think that enough people have seen the house yet. And I was like, okay, well, I've built enough rapport and I've built enough value to him. I believe that I have built enough to ask him a question, ask him a hard ask. And so I was like, do you think that, if I can get the eyes on this property that you want, you'd be willing to entertain listing with me? And so he's like, you know what? Let me call my wife, and give me the night to think about it. I was like, okay. And honestly, I walked away from there with the mindset of, I'm totally cool hosting an open house for this guy. Because if I could bring him a buyer, cool. And so he calls me the next day and he's like, you know what? My wife and I, we talked about it. We know a lot of real estate agents out here and we don't want to offend anybody, but it's yours. Let's do it. And I was like, yes, I'm like so excited, but I'm also so nervous because like this was like the biggest listing that I'd ever have. Yeah. This is in the first year of real estate. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I like called my managing broker and I was like, yo, he said, yes, I need your help. But
DeVante, isn't it amazing what happens when you just ask for the business or ask a question?
Absolutely.
People will buy what you're selling if they find value in what you're offering. I think the key point to what your story was you said to him, if I can bring you value, what value can I bring you? We always assume, I should say, I mean, I've been in for 30 years now. And we always assume that we know what the seller's motivation is or what's going on in their life. And I've always found you really never know the whole story. They're not going to share everything with you. But by just asking a few questions, you landed this gigantic listing, which was valued. How much was that listing? What was that? How much was it?
1.5.
Not a bad day's work, is it? So now that snowballed into more luxury listings. So talk about that.
Yeah, and so the name of the game is momentum, right? I got that and I leveraged it. I did open houses. What's crazy is I'm huge into open houses. And so I met the buyer for this house at an open house a month prior, right? They were represented by another agent, but I remember them. They're like, at this house that I was hosting an open house for before this, they're like, this isn't the one. And so I called them because I got their information and I said, you know what? Hey, Mr. Scott, I think I have something that you'd like. Come check it out. And so not only did I, add value to the guy by saying, hey, I'll host an open house for you. I got the listing and then I brought the buyer. They were represented by another agent, which is totally cool, but I brought him the buyer. And so like, it was just a beautiful experience, which snowballed into, them saying, really, really good things about me. And I leveraged that, went to another listing. I closed two luxury listings that month. And then it's just been great ever since. Just momentum.
It's awesome, man. It's funny. When I used to do my business planning when I was in production, I always had the 1 to 3 rule. Every one listing needed to turn to 3 transactions. So I always had a plan and a system in place that, and I'm an open house guy too. I believe in that. And a lot of people don't, which I never understood because, you're coming from the restaurant. I don't know how you feel about it, DeVante, but when I started real estate way back in the golden ages, there wasn't emails, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't an MLS system. That's not what we had. I had to do a 30-minute dissertation on how to use a fax machine because that was new technology at the time. But back then, we had all the information. It's changed now. The information's out there. So I believe, we're more in the service industry now than we've ever been. And defining a high level service really can add to your success. And when you're saying I did these open houses and I provided this value, that's just a level of service and a standard that you're setting that has helped your business grow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Nailed it.
So let's talk about this. You have a niche with luxury. Understand that. And it's funny. I was talking to people and a shout out to Amy Weaver and the luxury division. What she's done with that division is awesome. And we're going to talk about their tools and all in just a minute. But when I was at EXPCon, I was talking to a couple of people who were thinking about coming over, and they're also toying around in the luxury division or the luxury market. And they're like, but I'm just so afraid that I'm going to lose that lower market, the people that are not in the luxury, stratosphere. And it's all on how you market yourself. So for you, how do you, I know you and I spoke about it, and you don't want to give up. If it's not luxury, that doesn't mean you don't want it. So how do you balance your marketing and how you go about your business to make sure that you're not losing, yes, you have that niche, but you want to make sure you're getting everything. So how do you balance that?
Yeah. So one of the big things is I lead, if you go to any of my social media platforms, I say this all the time. I'm like, hey, luxury is not a price point. Luxury is a lifestyle. And so, I try to help people understand, like, listen, it could be your $700,000 house or your $500,000 house that's luxury to you. Hey, and you're going to get the luxury experience from me because I'm a luxury agent. I don't just sell luxury houses. I'm a luxury agent. So the service is elevated. And then, I honestly, I don't get too into myself, to be honest with you. Like, if you go to my social medias, man, I'm going to make you laugh. I'm just a relatable person. And so it's like, you come to an open house, you meet me. I'm not one in the suits. I don't wear the ties. You know what I mean? It's not really big out here where I'm at, to be honest with you. And so I don't personify like, oh, if you don't have $2 million listing, don't talk to me. Honestly, because listen, at the end of the day, luxury, what it is, it's a wants buy. It's not a needs purchase for a lot of people, right? And so what happens is it can be a person that is ready to buy that day. Like, hey, DeVante, found something I really like. Boom, throw it at you in the luxury sector. Or it could be somebody that you've nurtured for about 6 months to a year, right? So in the interim, you need those, those $500, $600, $400,000 sales. Like, it's important. So I market to them as well.
100%. But let's talk about that because it's interesting. You're talking about the emotional part of that, right? Of that buyer. So let's go to the listing side of it for a second. So is your preparation for a luxury listing different than your preparation for a non-luxury listing? And what kind of questions and objections at the luxury level do you see that might help the people watching this today?
Yeah, so it's different in the aspect of like comps, right? So if I have a $500,000 listing that's in a cookie cutter neighborhood, has a lot of, the neighbor just sold for, $500,000. Well, to be honest with you, your house looks just like theirs. We're going to be around the 500,000, and if it's a luxury house that has, 20 acres, the view of the mountains, a waterfall on, there's things that really other houses won't have. And so how do you comp that out? And so that's one of the biggest differences when prepping for a listing, luxury listing. But then one thing that I actually just implemented, and this was from a mastermind in my team, is creating a client avatar, a buyer avatar, and you put that into your luxury listing presentation. Now, I'm going to give you guys this for free because this is
talk about that. That's pretty cool. Let's talk about that.
I'm going to give you guys this for free. Okay. So what this is what you're going to do is you're going to have like a page on your listing presentation that has like a silhouette of a person. And you're going to look at all the recent solds for luxury close to, that house that you're looking at or you're looking to list. Find who bought it, where they're from, what they do, what their hobbies are, you know what I mean? And just like list those things out. And then when you go to that listing, you can say, hey, you know what, to be honest with you, houses that are close to yours have been bought by Bob and Sue from San Francisco. They're in the tech. they're gonna, you know what I mean? It just makes you, and so what you say is, and so we're gonna target to these specific areas with people with this specific criteria. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh my gosh, the seller's like, you've really done your homework. Nobody else is doing that, and
Yeah,
so that's free.
that's awesome. So this, before we get into the last part, I want to talk about the tools. Because like I said, Amy and her team has done a really nice job with the luxury division, and they're giving you all kinds of new tools for your tool belt. Are you utilizing them, and how have you found that to be so far?
Absolutely. So Amy Weaver and everybody over there are,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Oh my goodness. So, I mean, just the luxury presentation that they give you, you have this magazine that I print out, get printed out very, very high quality. And I take it to my listing presentations, and it shows who you'll be marketing to, whether that be Wall Street Journal, Rob Report, mansions.com, all those things. And then what you could do is you could take a picture of the house and put it into the magazine so that they see their house on, the Wall Street Journal, Rob Report, mansions.com. And that has just been a game changer. And then what they showcased at the EXPCon, whew,
Yeah,
I can't wait to get those.
I know. I was in that breakout. It was awesome. And, it's funny because I think that helps you overcome the challenges. A lot of people say, EXP isn't that well known. You 89,000 agents, but we're not well known, right? But we don't really play in the luxury division. Oh, yes, we do. And we're real good at it, by the way. So I think understanding what is at your fingertips and the tools that you have and the systems that are in place for you to be successful in that luxury market is critical for people to understand. So I'm glad you're using that. I want to shift lanes. You were on stage at EXPCon. You were freaking awesome. But you and I, when we spoke yesterday, you wrote a book. And as I said earlier, I'm a sports analogy guy. I love sports and everything, but I really love the title of your book, and I love everything it stands for. And I want you to talk about that and talk about what it means to you and why you wrote it. So I'll let you talk about the title and so forth.
Thank you. So the book it's not finished just yet, but it will be finished. And so the book is titled Just One Layup. And this is a mindset that I adopted a while ago. And this book is actually geared towards athletes. But when I got into real estate, I saw a need for this mindset as well. I was like, this is universal for athletes, entrepreneurs, real estate. Like, we can just apply this. Honestly, you can apply it in life. And so Just One Layup, the premise behind this is finding the easy wins on a daily basis in your sport and in your career to build momentum so that you can hit the 3-point shot. And so in basketball, the easiest shot that you can take is a layup, right? You're really close to the basket, just toss it up, boom. Well, what can you do in real estate, whether that be, if you're really good at door knocking, making your calls, whatever it is, what can you do on a daily basis when you're in a rut, especially this year? When I talked to, the crowd in EXPCon, I asked how many people were having, a hard first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and 65 to 70% raised their hand. Well, what do you need to do on a daily basis to get out of that rut? In a hard market, get back to the basics, take the easy shots, build momentum, so that way you can hit the 3-point shot.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you and I must be related because we're talking about a lot of the same things. And I call it the M&M theory. So you used the word momentum several times in this time together. I'm a big believer in Mo. I think you need to have momentum to move forward. I think it's a big deal. And I always talk to people, and you're kind of talking about now how to use that momentum and wins, right? So I always say, especially new agents, when they get in, they try to do 15, 20 things at a time. You're getting all these phone calls, buy this zip code, do this, that, there are all these different things. And all of a sudden you're wasting money and you're investing. You can't give enough time to 15 different things. But my second M has always been mastery. If you can do 2 or 3 things and get them to a mastery level, watch what happens to your business. Watch what happens, the effect that comes out of that. That's where that momentum that you're talking about, I believe, carries on. And I think that's a big deal. And I think the more momentum that you get and the more results you see, you start getting that confidence, right?
Oh, yeah. It's really huge. There's a story. I'll take a few minutes to tell this story.
Sure.
So I don't know if you guys know who Steph Curry is, right? Steph Curry is one of the greatest shooters of all time, right? He's still playing to this day on the Golden State Warriors. So in 2019, Steph was it was the Western Conference Finals. It was Steph Curry, his whole Golden State Warriors versus the Houston Rockets. Game 6, they need to win this game. in order to go to the finals. And so he was actually having a horrible game. First quarter, 0 points, 2 quick fouls. Second quarter, and again, we're talking about the greatest shooter of all time, 0 points. They go into halftime, they make their adjustments. It's not until halfway through the third quarter that Steph gets his first points of the game. And it was a layup. Now we're talking about one of the greatest shooters of all time, was struggling, right? But he got back to the basics. He's like, okay, what do I need to do to build momentum? And so, and then a couple minutes later, he gets another layup. Well, what's crazy is he ended that game with 33 points. They won the game. They went on to the finals, right? Well, what can we do in our businesses? You know what I mean? Again, to build that momentum when we know we're struggling. And one thing you were talking about was, a lot of people are buying this and doing that. I call that desperation ball. You're just putting up shots. You're just trying anything. And it's bricking, you're airballing, you're doing the worst things that you can do. You're hurting yourself. Get back to your basics and master the layup, then master your free throw. And then next thing you know, the 3-point shot doesn't feel so far away.
No question about it. I've been coaching basketball for 30 years, and I coached little kids all the way up to I coach girls basketball now, and it's so much fun. But it's so funny. I see little 6 and 7 and 8-year-old kids who can barely dribble. Where do they go first? Go right to the 3-point and try to hit 3-pointers. It goes halfway there. I'm like, make a layup. Let's work our way back to that. But something you talked about, and it actually relates to the story you just talked about with Seth. You talked earlier a couple of minutes ago about celebrating the wins. And I think, I think real estate sales, this is just Frank's opinion, is one of the hardest sales jobs there is out there. We don't manufacture anything. So we have to go find a product. We have to find a client. We don't have a database. We have to build that too. We have to work with our direct competitor, go over about 15 different hurdles, and hope to get paid at the end. So what's easy about that, right? So I think sometimes real estate agents are so hard on themselves, DeVante. Like, I think we're so, this person's doing 100 million. This person's doing 200. This person does $10 million. This guy sold 5 this month. I didn't sell any. Celebrate each win. Yeah. One thing I've learned is that the goalposts aren't as far away as you think it is. Right. Sometimes you're just looking so far into the distance, you don't see what's right in front of you. When you start stacking up small wins and you celebrate those small wins, big things happen. For an example, I was that guy in the beginning of my career. I was banging my head against the wall. And then I kind of took a step back. I'm like, why am I comparing myself to people who've been doing this much longer than me? I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. I was 24 years old. I didn't know what was going on. So then I changed my mindset, which gets back to what you were saying in the beginning. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to call this thing the power of one. Power of one. If I can find one person that wants to buy or sell real estate in the next 6 months, if I could do one a week, that's 52 people that are going to buy a house in the next 6 to 12 months. If I could just do that. So I stopped worrying about the big picture, and I started getting real intentional about my actions that week to make sure I found that one person. And as I did that, my first 2 months of real estate, I didn't do anything. The second 10 months of real estate, I sold 37 houses. So it was change of focus, change of being purposeful and intentional, which helped me with my success. So everything you're saying, I really relate to. And, when you were speaking on stage at EXPCon, super powerful, man.
Thank you. Thank you. It was an honor.
So talk about where you want to go. You're only 3 years in and you're killing it. What's the next phase for DeVante Blow's business? What's next?
Whew, man, that's a huge question. That is such a huge question. Agent attraction is something that, I definitely want to get into. I was doubting myself a lot until about last week, honestly, when I went to EXPCon and I saw all these people that had, 500, 600, 3,000 people in their downline. And they're like, no, it's possible. And the biggest thing about it was they're adding value. So it wasn't like, oh, I have all these people. It's like, no, I'm changing these lives. Right. And so I think that made it click. It clicked in my mind because I didn't want to be like, oh, I just have all these people under me and it's really cool. And after I spoke, a lot of people are like, thank you so much. I needed that and blah, blah, blah. And like what that did for me, I was like, okay, so I do have something of value to give to people. And so agent attraction is something that I definitely want to, focus on for sure, way more now, because I know that I have something of value to give to people. I can help people. I can coach people. And then obviously I just want to see people succeed. And so
Isn't
if
it
I have
incredible,
a hand,
Devante, though? Because you're a successful guy, but yet you doubted what your value proposition was. And I think that happens a lot with people.
yeah,
They doubt, yes, I'm selling all these houses. Yes, I'm doing great. But what do I really have? Why would somebody want to listen to me?
yeah,
It's interesting, but if you can't define your own value propositions and understand the talent that you have, then you're just holding yourself back,
yeah.
And I
That's
like to use that power of one theory for attraction as well. Think about it this way, Devante. Again, yes, there's people out there that have hundreds, thousands, 10,000 people in an organization. Don't look at that goalpost. Bring it closer. Power of one. Devante, if you can find one person that you can give the gift of EXP to, if you can find one a week that might be interested in the next 6 to 12 months,
yeah,
what's it going to look like a year from now?
right.
Right. So now all of a sudden that goalpost, now your first line just went from 0 to 12 or 10. And then what's that look like year two? So that goalpost isn't as far away. Again, it's a matter of mindset. And you're a master at framing.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% correct. That's why I said, you know what, it clicked. I was like, why am I doubting myself? Like, again, you said, you have all these accolades or whatever have you, but it's the value proposition that I believe in and others believed in as well. So it's real cool to see it on somebody's face. Like, oh man, that really clicked. Thank you so much for that help. And then obviously I want to expand the luxury division out here in Bellingham, Washington. Right.
Yep.
So we have some heavy hitters out here. Right. But hey, listen, I'm tossing my hat into the ring. I'm like, listen, I'm a heavy hitter too, So, and I'm powered by EXP. So a lot of people, they ask, they're like, you know what? Hey, EXP, is it big where you're at? And I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, EXP is great. It's the greatest. But when I go into a listing presentation, people often don't ask who I'm with. People are going to hire, people that they like, so if I'm with, Windermere, Redfin, whatever have you,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. And so EXP has definitely just given me that extra edge by all the tools that they have. And so I walk in there with a little bit of swagger, like, yo, not only am I DeVante Blow, but I'm powered by EXP.
I'm Devante. It's time for you to get to know me. Hey,
That's
man,
good.
thank you so much for this time you spent with us. You dropped a lot of nuggets, brother, and really been a pleasure to get to speak to you and to know you better. And I'm glad we have this relationship now, and I look forward to growing more with you, man. But thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Thanks, Devante. Whoo! How about that guy? I told you he was special. That was pretty awesome. So, two great guests today. And a couple of things I wanted before we wrap up is one, I wanted to give a shout out to all the people who do community service across the country this week. I saw all kinds of stuff on Workplace and way to represent the company and our culture, which brings me to the next piece. As you all know, as much fun as we had last week and success we had, we also had a really big blow to the EXP family this week. Rick Jiha, as you guys know, we lost Rick. And if you've never had the opportunity to meet him, just a special guy, class, heart. He just made you feel like he knew you his whole life. And so it was a big loss for us. And I just want to acknowledge the impact that he's had on the people of this company. Our heart, our prayers, our thoughts go out to Rick's family. And, that it hit home for me. My family went through the same thing just a few years ago. I lost my brother to a heart attack. It was unexpected. And it changes your life, everybody. And, it changed mine that day. I have never been the same since. And it's because of my outlook. I can tell you one thing I've learned is that God has only given each and every one of us a specific amount of heartbeats. We don't know how many that is. So what my message to you is today is to live life to the fullest. We don't know what's coming. Live your life with no regrets. If you have stress in your life, let it go because it's really not worth it. So just live a full life and live a purposeful life. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for that. Rick, you're in our prayers. We wanted to recognize the 279 icons who were awarded icon status in September. So congratulations, everybody who reached icon status in September. We're going to run a video now. So if you guys stay tuned for Conversations with the Icons. My name is Frank Panunto. Thank you so much for joining me today, Russ. We need you back, brother. And again, you guys, if it, just to remind everybody, we have the NPS surveys. It's a 0 to 10. Make sure you guys give us a rating. Tell us how we're doing, so we know how to improve this and bring more value to you. If there's something specific you want, let us know, and we'll make sure that we incorporate that into this big show. So again, have a great weekend. Have a great life, everybody. Thank you so much for spending time with me, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you, everyone.